Okay. This is Song Ji-yoon interviewing Reverend Liberato Bautista at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on June 8th, 2016. The interview is taking place at room number 1107 of the New Gukje Hotel at 12 세종대로 22 길 in Seoul. The video camera operator is Han Young-soo. Your oral history interview will be used for a second oral history project for foreign activities related to Korean democracy movement being conducted by KDF. Hello, Reverend.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
How's jet lags?
Say that again?
Jet lags? You don't have any jet lags?
It might show after 1 hour, but not now.
Okay, that's great. How long has it been since you visited Korea?
Last week.
Last week. Just the last week.
Yeah.
What brought you here then?
I was at the United Nations conference in Cheongju.
Cheongju.
Yeah.
How did you enjoy your visit last time?
No, not really, because I was in the conference and I was never able to see the beautiful city of Cheongju.
Oh,
It
beautiful city of Cheongju.
I never visited the tombs of
I see. So it was a very short visit.
It was a short visit, 3 days, and then I went back on Thursday, and then I came back here again.
I see, you're very busy. First of all, you have readily accepted the invitation to the 2016 International Democracy Solidarity Seminar organized by the Korea Democracy Foundation. Could you tell me how you felt when you received the invitation and what made you decide to come?
I had mixed feelings when I received the invitation. Mixed feelings precisely because of the nature of my love for the country Korea, my friendship with many people, but also my engagement with those same people and the churches and the ecumenical movement here has shown me the harsh reality of the democratization movement, including people who have been imprisoned. And so looking at the seminar could bring back those kind of memories. But I came because of the urging of good friends. Dr. Park Sang-jung, I've known him way back in the 1980s. Maybe you were not born yet. The first time I came here, 1983.
That year is
My
exactly...
first visit to Korea was 1983. So you may not be born yet.
That year is exactly when I was born.
There you go. So you were still an infant.
Just a fetus, yeah.
Yeah. So 1983, I've already known Dr. Park Sang-jung. So when I received the invitation, my mixed feelings is partly addressed by the invitation of someone I know. And then the organizing committee that included Dr. An Jeung, also a friend that I have known way back in the 1980s. So I said, okay, I'll go because these are good friends.
Okay. Thanks for accepting invitation. The first question I would like to ask you is about your personal history. Could you describe your childhood and school life?
Well, I grew up as a young boy in the 1960s. And I come from northern Philippines. It's not necessarily a progressive town where I was born. I was born to very poor parents.
Yeah.
In fact, I was born in a town where by the time I finished high school, we still didn't have electricity.
Wow.
So you can imagine growing up all the way to high school,
Yes.
we only had kerosene lamp. petrol lamp. So you can see there will be, every time I read my book overnight, by the time I wake up, it's full of soot.
I see.
But you're familiar with Cagayan? You've been to Cagayan, to Gigarao?
I don't know about
Much
that.
northern than Baguio.
Oh,
You know,
I see.
Ilocos Norte.
So it was way cooler.
Way farther.
I see.
So my childhood, I enjoyed family. I'm the youngest among my siblings, and I enjoyed rural life. But I also know that poverty is not necessarily what I would have wanted my childhood to be.
I see. So you said no electricity until you were a high school student. So, but look at you now, you're like very respectable person now.
And come to think of it, when I was in high school, the encyclopedia in the library in my high school was a 1959 version of the Book of Knowledge.
I see.
When I visited my high school in early 2000, that was still the encyclopedia they were using.
I see. I bet you had a lot of a desire to study more, right?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I had thirst for knowledge, definitely.
Yes. So, with that circumstance, like no electricity or, books are kind of old, what made you have that kind of desire to study more?
Yeah. Well, I had brothers and sisters who lived in Lawag City, which is not too far a distance, but during that time it would take 3, 4, or 5 hours to reach. They had electricity. So I knew the difference between my hometown and the first big city closest to my hometown. Maybe once in several years, I would go to Manila, visit my sisters and brothers there. I know that they have television. I know that they have, but I don't have in my. So I saw right away the difference between what poverty looks like and what another
Part.
another part of the country looked like, and it certainly wasn't like my hometown.
Yes. So that was a trigger.
Certainly it wasn't the main trigger, but because in my hometown, I mean, I love the idyllic, rice fields.
Beautiful.
My town has the ocean,
Wow.
the rice field, and the mountain. I mean, tourists love that kind of town where a few minutes you're in the ocean,
And
a
then
few minutes you're in the rice field, a few minutes you're in the mountain. I love that place, but the fact that the education that I had is not necessarily because the school was good, but that I had the desire to learn.
Okay.
But elsewhere, the situation was much better. I don't have regrets that I went to that school, but the trigger, as you call it, is to be able to see the gap between poverty and wealth, which is found elsewhere.
I see. I feel kind of ashamed not studied so hard when I was young. Okay. Also, we would like to know how you were first engaged in political movements as a Christian activist.
Before I became an activist, I was first a Christian.
Okay.
And that's an important statement for me, because I became active in church soon after my family, which is not all, just my parents, father and mother, and my sister before me. I come from a big family. I'm the 18th child of my father.
Wow.
Well, my father married twice. When his first wife died, he married my mom. But he had 9 with the first, and he had 9 with my mom.
I see.
With my mom, I'm the 9th. With my father, I'm the 18th. So you can
It's
see it's
incredible.
a big family. But when my sister and I, plus my parents, were left in our town, we became United Methodists. So previously we were Catholics, and all my sisters and brothers up to now remain Roman Catholics, but we became Methodists. It was when we became Methodists that I was involved in what is called the United Methodist Youth Fellowship. Youth Fellowship.
Yep.
So the United Methodist Youth Fellowship gave me the opportunity to visit other towns. And so my visit of other towns exposed me
I see.
to other conditions that otherwise I could not see in my small hometown.
Must be pretty shocking to you. At first, you come across those other situations.
Well, it's mixed feeling, both shocking as well as exciting.
I see.
It exposed me, so my search for knowledge in the school, my exposure to Christian teachings in the church, those two all of a sudden came together, and with school and family, it brought me to other places where brothers and sisters were. With school, family, and church, it brought me to other towns that otherwise I will not go because I don't have brothers and sisters there.
Yeah,
You can see the difference?
I know.
And so, 3 realities put together gave me lessons that otherwise family alone will not give, the church alone will not give, school alone will not give.
I think I understand what you meant exciting there. You never know where your life will take you.
Exactly. New places, new people, new experiences gave me a wider vista of the world.
Yeah, it sounds very wonderful. and
Exactly.
religious.
That was the initial excitement. Yeah.
I am also excited where my life will take me.
You never know what, which is what I did. I mean, I never knew I would be sitting in front of you.
Me too. I will never know I will have this great opportunity. Okay. I guess I will have to be very positive about my life.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah.
You just made me realize that. Thank you. Can you tell me more about other activities that you were in as a Christian activist?
Oh yeah. So my Christian upbringing was at a time when, by the time I finished high school, 1976, that was already 4 years of the military dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos.
4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
Martial law in the Philippines was declared in 1972. And I was first year high school. And so all my 4 years of high school means that, and those were also my initial years with the MYF, the Methodist Youth Fellowship.
Yes.
Okay, the church youth group. So my formative years in activism started with the MYF, with the Methodist Youth Fellowship. So my encounter of God, my encounter of Bible, my encounter of theology happened at the same time as my encounter of the social, economic, and political reality of my country. So that by the time I finished high school, I moved to Manila. Then everything is in front of me. Poverty in Metro Manila, wealth in Metro Manila, local politics, high politics, they're all in front of me.
So, okay, dictatorship you mentioned. I
Yes.
just can't imagine how the life would be under the dictatorship.
I used to imagine when I was in northern Philippines, but when I went to Manila, the demonstrations and the military apparatus of the government was visible. I can only listen by radio and read in newspapers when I was in northern Philippines, but by the time I went to Manila, it's right in front of me.
None of your family member were involved in some sort of a demonstration or...
Not in the manner I was. Yeah.
We know that you are a member of the Philippine Student Christian Movement.
Mm-hmm.
You must have had an interest in the Philippine Democratic Movement.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me what activities you were engaged in during that period?
Yeah, so I became a member of the Student Christian Movement because I was the president of the United Methodist Youth Fellowship in the Philippines. So the Student Christian Movement in the Philippines is represented by different Christian organizations. So if you are a Methodist, you are a United Church, you're a Lutheran, you're a Baptist, so the youth leaders of those different Christian denominations can become a member of the leadership of the Student Christian Movement. So when I was the national president of the United Methodist Youth Fellowship, I became a member of the Student Christian Movement. Now, the Student Christian Movement is school-based. The United Methodist Youth Fellowship is church-based.
Mm-hmm.
So, from being a student in Northern Philippines and then becoming a leader of a church youth, by the time I get to Manila, I became a part of a leader of a student group that is university-based.
Oh.
So you can see the increasing
Yes.
responsibility. So the Student Christian Movement, just like the Korean Student Christian Federation, so the SCM Philippines is the equivalent of the KSCF in Korea, Korea Student Christian Federation. Both SCM and the Korea Student Christian Federation are members of the World Student Christian Federation. Yeah? So, by becoming a member of the Student Christian Movement, I was exposed to student activism. So, Christian youth plus student activism met at that point.
I see. Do you have any memorable experience from the Student Christian Movement in the Philippines?
Oh my goodness. Everything is memorable.
Can you give us some examples?
What traditional church does not give, the Student Christian Movement gave. So that the understanding of faith
Yes.
as something that goes beyond the traditional church understanding that it is individual. In the Student Christian Movement, God claimed the world. Now, every Christian knows that Jesus came to earth because God so loved the world. But conservative Christianity says, abandon the world. Now, for what reason must I abandon the world when Jesus came for the world? Because conservative Christianity says, work this life so that you go to heaven. Well, just imagine for a moment, God sent His Son from heaven to earth because God loved the earth and the world. Conservative Christianity says, leave the earth because you must go to heaven.
Yeah.
In the Student Christian Movement, we claim the goodness of God's creation, and therefore whatever is happening on earth should be the concern of Christianity. So if the political world is in crisis, if the economic world is in crisis, if the cultural realm is in crisis, it's a Christian responsibility to look
After.
at those crises and address them.
see.
And that's a fundamental understanding within SCMs around the world.
That's very deep. Okay. Based on what you witnessed in the Philippines that era, we heard that you also became interested in Korea democratic movement. How were you first connected to the movement? And did any Korean people help you to get involved?
When I finished college,
Yes.
the first job I had was to be the human rights officer of the National Council of Churches in the Philippines. So I've never worked anywhere in my entire life except in church.
Yeah.
I've never worked in government. I've never worked for a business company. From college up until now, I've always worked for the church. And so when I was a staff of the National Council of Churches, I was also involved with many other national councils of churches around the world. And one of the national councils that I was involved in is the National Council of Churches in Korea, because NCC Philippines and NCC Korea have a bilateral relation. And so, because of my professional work, I got introduced to Koreans and the Korean churches, including the Korea Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church in Korea, etc., because of my ecumenical work. So that's how I got introduced to Korean issues.
That's the chance. So all your work is based on the church work.
Definitely. That's how I got to meet Dr. Park Sang-jung, because in 1985, I was elected as a member of the General Committee of the Christian Conference of Asia. I was elected here in Seoul. And Dr. Park Sang-jung was the General Secretary of the Christian Conference of Asia. So I was in the governing board of CCA.
Okay. You mentioned Dr. Park Sang-jung. And can you describe him?
He's a lovable man.
When you first saw him, like, how was the impression?
He was a very strong leader. If he is in front of me now, I will still say what I'm going to tell you, that we had disagreements on the floor. When I came here in 1985, I was a student activist, a Christian student activist. And he was the general secretary of an institution. And of course, he had to preserve institutional life. And the student activist in me said, well, you got to do better than that. And so Dr. Park and me and other young people had disagreements.
Yes.
But I will also say that I was lucky to have been a student Christian leader at the time when Park Sang-jung, Dr. Anjay Wong, Dr. Yongbok Kim, Dr. O.J. Shik, Dr. Mongyu Kang, all Korean giants of churches and the ecumenical movement, I was schooled under them.
So you must really respect them.
So eventually, we have earned each other's respect.
I see.
We clashed, we quarreled,
But
we laughed, we ate together, we struggled together, and we sharpened each other's understanding of Korea, of the Philippines, and of the world. And I think I've been blessed to have met these people.
it sounds very honorable friendship.
Definitely. Very honorable friendship. And over the years, trust has been built.
I think also it's because all of you were under hard times, like.
There you go. And I think part of the historical backdrop would be that the time of President Park Geun-hye was the time of Marcos. So these were two dictatorships running at the same time.
Yes, sad times, and then strong relationship
Yeah.
bloomed there.
Yeah. It challenged the church to say, what will the church say in a situation like this? What will the ecumenical movement say about this? And when the church and when the churches and the ecumenical movement said something about what is happening in the Philippines and in Korea, necessarily you get connected, sometimes entangled with the democracy movement in both countries and other parts of the world.
I just come up with one question.
Mm.
The questions I'm going to ask you from now is Gwangju uprising in June. But with that, you and Dr. Park Sang-jung and others were involved in a student movement against the dictatorship. But according to the history, until now, those dictatorship governments cannot really touch those religious organizations. For example, like those police officers cannot barge into Vatican City or something like that. So, lots of students who were involved in the students' movement, they were locked up in jail or they were tortured sometimes. But was there a very little punishment from the government because you're religious activist or like a church-based student
Say it again.
movement?
What was the question? Was there something about the government?
Government's punishment to those those people who are involved in the students' movement.
Right.
But I just wonder that if those kind of punishment was weaker because you guys are related to religion.
I don't think so. I don't think so. In the Philippines, many of those who were imprisoned, disappeared, or extrajudicially executed or tortured, many of them were priests, nuns, pastors. So the military dictatorship in the Philippines did not spare the religious.
It wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter. That's one way of putting it. Another way of putting it is that in the Philippines, a largely religious country, many of those who opposed the government were also religious leaders.
So,
and therefore, the Marcos government did not spare religious leaders. They didn't care. In Korea, and this is only a commentary then, Dr. An Jae-wong was imprisoned and he was tortured. And he is here, and he is one of the organizers of this conference. And he was a leader of the Korean student Christian movement. And he was exiled soon after he was released because he knew that his life was still in danger and he had to recuperate from the torture. So Christian churches in the United States took care of him until he could come back again.
okay.
Yeah.
He was exiled.
Hmm?
Exiled,
here.
yes. Exiled by your own country.
Yeah.
It's really harsh.
Yeah.
Okay, then I will start asking you about those Gwangju situation. You can just answer as far as you know. The most tragic event in the process of the democratic movement in Korea was the Gwangju massacre in 1980. What do you know about this event?
I only knew it from my ecumenical friends.
Okay.
So I've been to many places in Korea, and my one regret is I've never been to Gwangju. And so it's only from stories, both oral and written in books, that I have heard of the Gwangju massacre. But the way it is described means a lot to me because it involves students, and in many parts of the world, uprisings, revolutions, the toppling of harsh governments have always been started by students. In the Philippines, yes. In in South Korea, yes, and as you said, the Gwangju massacre, and therefore in the history of the democratization of countries around the world, Gwangju holds a prominent place.
I see. You said you only knew about this event through books or reports.
Stories from
Stories oral,
people who
yes.
knew about it, yes.
So, have you ever watched any videos or like a...
Vaguely, I don't particularly remember anything that is. I'm sure that during my time with the CCA, that there may have been videos shown, but then 1980s, you're talking of. What do you remember about videos in 1980? You don't have a cell phone. There are no smartphones. There's no high definition.
by those
There's no
international...
cell phone.
Yes.
So it's, you remember Betamax?
Mm-hmm.
See? That's what we used to have. So I don't know. I mean, if we have a cell phone then, as the massacre was happening, I'm sure it's videoed.
Sure.
Which is what happened in Egypt during the Spring Revolution. You know, but that was not the case then.
Okay. I also only know about this through very old...
Archival material.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
and by those international reporters, like foreigners.
I'm sure I may have seen a few photos in the democracy, how do they call that, in Busan.
Democracy...
There's a democracy hall somewhere there in Busan.
So it was exhibited.
Exhibit, yeah, of black and white photos even.
So I guess you don't really know about Gwangju situation.
Not from a first person perspective.
My next question was supposed to be, did you take any action after you find out? So none, right?
And 1980, I'm still in college at that time.
Oh, I see.
So I'm not yet in a position to have taken anything that would have involved any official title I had. Yeah.
Then let's move on.
Yeah.
During 1985 to 1991, you were a member of the General Committee of the Christian Conference of Asia, which is called CCA. What do you think were the most remarkable activities related to South Korea?
Well, that's what I said, that I was elected as a member of the General Committee here in Korea. So it's memorable in the sense that my election was here in Korea. That was my first visit to Korea. And the General Secretary is Dr. Park Sang-jung, who is now the president of KDF. So who would know 31 years ago, when he was CCA General Secretary and now KDF, that I would be in this
Position.
those two events, and in two events where he is involved. So that itself is remarkable. And then, as I said, the other thing that is memorable is that during that period, I got to meet courageous Korean people. I got exposed to the notion of the Minjung. So through Korean theologians, Korean political scientists, I was exposed to Korean ideas. Yeah.
Do you have any memories or some specific event with one of those Koreans you would remember?
Well, 2 months after I was elected, I came back to Korea and I visited. I was part of the fact-finding mission on the human rights situation in Korea, and I visited Kim Dae-jung. It was my birthday when I went to his house.
Birthday gift.
So he even gave me a gift of his calligraphy.
Oh.
So it was very special because it was my birthday, and I was in the house of Kim Dae-jung. and he was then under house arrest.
I see.
Yeah.
So, how was your first impression when you met Kim Dae-jung?
He was a very peaceful man. And so how could a military government call him what he otherwise is not?
Yeah. He looks peaceful when I see his photo.
Yeah.
I think when I was really, really young, maybe kindergarten
Yeah.
or early age of elementary,
Yeah.
I have seen him far, far away when he was marching to the election. I can't even remember, because even though I was really young, I still remember that was very honorable feeling.
Right.
Like something inside me was
That you were able to see him even
Yes.
from afar. Yeah.
because I didn't know about him very well, but I have heard a lot of stories that
Yeah,
he's a great person. So,
He's a very devout Christian also.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I think that we owe a lot to him in terms of exhibiting, for Christians, we owe a lot to him for exhibiting what a good follower of Christ is and must be. As a politician, we owe to him part of the democratization of Korea.
You lived very exciting and honorable life. So you were engaged in ecumenical relations with the South Korea, especially through the Korea Student Christian Federation,
And the NCC Korea as well.
NCC Korea. What can you tell me about it?
Well, so my immediate, as far back as that period that we're talking about in the 80s and the 90s, my relation with the student Christian movement was with Dr. Anjay Wong and successive leaders. I don't even remember now the names of the former secretaries general of the KSCF, but Dr. Anjay Wong was the secretary general in the 80s, and then he was exiled, and then he eventually became the general secretary of the Association of SCMs all over Asia Pacific, which was based in Hong Kong. So at that time, I'm already a staff of the National Council of Churches in the Philippines, and therefore, and as a former SCM member, we are called senior friends. By the time you finish university, then you become a senior friend of the student Christian movement. And so I would have been in meetings in Asia Pacific countries where Dr. Park, Dr. An, and others we will be meeting. So those are memorable because, as I said, they are the ecumenical giants of Asia, and the NCC Philippines and NCC Korea had a bilateral relation. So we held Koreans would come to the Philippines, Filipinos would come to Korea, and therefore I would deliver a speech here, and a Korean will respond. A Korean will deliver speech, I would respond. Yeah.
I see.
Like Dr. No Jung-sun of Yonsei University, people like them. Yeah.
So you get to know more people.
Yes.
Do you know any organization or people who try to help in Gwangju? I mean, from Philippines? You don't know? Okay. What was your first impression of the student movement you experienced in Korea?
Very well organized. But again, my most direct association would be with the Korean Student Christian Federation, as well as the youth organizations of the churches. So Korean Methodist Youth, Presbyterian Youth, etc. Because in the CCA, there will always, every time the CCA meets in a General Assembly, for example, or other youth events, there will most likely be several participants of young people, and of course, Korea Ecumenical Movement is one of the strong movements in Asia Pacific, and almost always there will be a Korean youth attending those meetings. So those were very direct encounters. Yeah.
So you experienced any demonstration like students were doing?
Interestingly, I've never been into a Korean demonstration. When I was in the fact-finding mission, there was one day we were meeting, and one member of the fact-finding mission, who was the chairperson of the World Student Christian Federation Asia Pacific, is an Orthodox bishop from India, and he heard about Molotov bomb, the tear gas.
Tear gas.
And there was a demonstration of students, and this bishop from India said, "What is this tear gas that they're talking about? I want to experience it." And we said to him, "Go ahead." So he left our meeting, he joined the demonstration.
Oh, wow.
And then he came back in the afternoon and said,
Swollen eyes.
"You didn't tell me that this will happen." And I said, "Well, you said you wanted to experience." So the following day, he's like,
He couldn't open his
he
eyes.
could not see.
I remember in Yonsei University,
Yeah.
I was young.
You went to Yonsei?
No.
I
I wish.
I'll be teaching in Yonsei next year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You will be teaching whole year?
Say it again?
You will be teaching a couple of years or?
No. Just a quick course.
Quick
Yeah,
course?
Yeah.
You will be teaching for Christian related.
Yeah, the Graduate Institute of Theology.
I see.
Yeah.
By the way, I was really young.
Yeah.
I was with my mother in a bus
Oh.
passing by Yonsei University, and there was a big demonstration was going on, and of course those soldiers and the students were
Clashing.
clashing and throwing the tear gas at each other. I was in the bus, even I couldn't really open my eyes, and
Definitely, because
so
the
painful.
smoke was just
Yes. So, yes, that must be your friend's
That was
great
exactly.
experience.
Exactly.
You
Well,
will never want
I've
it.
experienced tear gas in the Philippines, but tear gas in Korea is
Stronger.
intelligent,
I see.
smarter. They say smart tear gas.
In a good way.
It drops. It breaks into two. It breaks into
Wow.
two, so it chases you.
It's like a disease. That's hard times.
Scary.
Yeah, young people these days, they don't even know what's tear gas.
Exactly.
They will be amazed listening those stories.
And this archival work of KDF is important in that sense.
I now feel it is really, really important for us to leave those documents for the
To record it.
yes,
Yes.
young people, so they will remember and they can appreciate what they're having now.
Yeah.
Okay. So your fact-finding mission from your visit back then, what kind of activities did you do, and also what kind of people
Well,
did you meet?
we talked to the Christian leaders. This is not exact, but this is from memory, and my memory may lapse now. I don't even know where my copy of the book that was published about our fact-finding mission, because a book was published, a booklet, I should say, was published in Hong Kong. It would be good to put it in the archives of KDF, but we definitely talked to church leaders, we talked to Minjung theologians, we talked to factory workers, we talked to women leaders, we talked to student leaders. But all this while, it was very dangerous.
Yes.
And in fact, when we finished our fact finding, you were saying we were possibly under surveillance. So at that time, to be able to go to the airport and leave the country, we had to take different kind of routes to make
Wow.
sure that whoever is, if ever there is anyone following us, that they get lost before we went back to the airport.
One part that I don't kind of understand,
Yeah.
the so-called surveillance. Like, you were not even soldier,
Yeah.
or those people who came here for the fact-finding mission.
Right.
They're not soldiers, or I don't know. I don't know how they can be threat. So, why they were.
Well,
put under
anywhere in the
surveillance.
world, the last thing that a harsh government would want the world to know is that it is harsh.
What they're doing now.
That what they're doing is harsh. When you're talking of what's happening in the Philippines with the military, the worst that the Marcos government wanted the world to know is that what a fact-finding mission will say. And what
the
we
rest of the
said,
world.
what we said in that fact-finding mission is that the situation of Korea was precarious, that the political condition for freedom and democracy to exist are under threat, and that the dictatorship was curtailing human rights and freedoms. Now, if we told the world that is what governments like my government in the Philippines and the government in Korea at that point did not want the world to know, and so the role of a fact-finding mission in that sense is not conducive for any government who is ruling very harshly.
Yeah, I guess that's why they control media first. So maybe those kind of dictatorship was harsh long ago when, as you say, no cell phones, no good
It
quality
punishes.
of video cameras.
It's not distinct to Korea. It's peculiar to every country that curtails freedom, including freedom of the press, and therefore, anything that exposes that country to the world is perceived as threat.
Also, I guess they don't want their own people to know what's
That's
going
an
on.
important insight. That's an important insight. Yeah.
So it's like a fortress.
Yeah, yeah. A
So-
portrait of the very country they live in, but otherwise are not told them. So sometimes the international community is the one that's needed to expose it, because courage can be had outside. It's much the courage that your own people here exhibited was different because it's always under threat. It's much more courageous, in fact, but you could get imprisoned and tortured just like Dr. Ann.
I can get it now. Were there also students among the people you met? You just mentioned those people, a lot of women factory.
Yeah, I'm sure we met with leaders of the Korean Student Christian Federation.
What kind of stories did those people tell you?
I'm sure it's the stories of repression, of freedom of the press, of curtailment of the right to organize. But there were happy moments, of course. We also sang songs. I learned how to sing Korean marching songs.
I've heard it. You still remember
I remember.
marching for, I don't know what it, 님을 위한 행진?
Good day.
Yeah.
ra, 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 ra.
Sounds
I know the entire
not.
notes, yeah.
It sounds happy and at the same time it's sad.
Well, people's struggle is not all gloom. Because in fact, to be able to struggle is to be able to affirm life.
Yeah.
What you would say is, no, I will not allow the forces of oppression and exploitation to dampen my spirit. And I think, for me, in the Philippines, not here, in the Philippines, I survived the Marcos dictatorship because I knew that there is a spirit that lives in my heart, and my Christian faith helped nurture that. Now, that is not always the case for other people.
Yes.
But my activism is deeply Christian. There are other activists who are not Christian. They'll have to define why they have activism. But my brand of activism was
Based on
deeply Christian, because I knew that my Jesus would not have allowed for exploitation and for oppression to happen.
if I were activist back then, I would be pretty violent one. I can listening those stories even make me really angry.
Yeah.
But I guess, as you say, it wasn't always gloomy. Like there must been
There's a
some
lot
sort
of
of
singing
beautiful
and
memories with the
dancing.
fellowships and
Yeah.
strong faith
Yeah.
for the people
Yeah.
and the goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing era.
As they say in the United States, owing from the African tradition, there will always be a kumbaya moment.
Kumbaya moment.
You know the kumbaya song?
Kumbaya song?
Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya.
Oh.
Which is the way the African Americans consoled themselves when they were under oppression by the white majority. So they will meet together, and in fact, the kumbaya is literally translated in English as "come by here."
Come by.
Come by. So it's "come by here, my Lord, come by here." So when they were threatened,
Oh,
they would summon God.
I see.
Come here,
by.
God, come with us.
Come with us. Be with us.
And we know that you are with us. So there are always those moments when you just went to a rally. I mean, for me, because I would have joined a rally in the Philippines as a Methodist youth and as a Christian, we pray first before we go to rally. That is not always the case for other groups. I mean, I cannot speak for them. But I joined because of my Christian faith.
I wish more people can have opportunity, like this kind of opportunity, to talk to a person who were actually lived in that era. I read lots of stuff. We learn history. Like example, Japanese occupation. There were people who fought for a country. I personally teach some students these days. And whenever I talk about those kind of event, they don't
it's hard
really
for them to imagine.
know. Yes,
Yeah.
and they don't really know, and they only consider those stuff for studying material.
Right.
Something they have to memorize is
Yeah.
stressful. They don't appreciate anything.
Yeah. And the problem with that is that textbooks can also be revised, and that's happening in Japan.
Yes.
Textbook revision.
So I wish more people have opportunity to actually listen to people who lived in that
That's
era.
partly the importance of oral history.
Yes, I think it is really, really important.
Yeah.
And also you can feel that feelings talking to people,
Yeah.
as I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said research and fact-finding missions quite different. You were here for the fact-finding mission. You listen what people say and then you record it, I guess. So how come how those two are different?
Well, let's put it
exactly?
this way. I've been to Korea to attend consultations, seminars, but I have not done research, as in academic research, like a longitudinal research. No, because that's just not part of my responsibilities. What I can say though is that what I know of Korea is having read research by your own people. In other words, I've always put premium to what your people say because your own people know best what is happening in your country. Now, that is sometimes compromised when there is no freedom of speech in the country and therefore your own people are not able to write. So sometimes people go on exile to be able to write what they think of their country, and that being in exile is a painful thing.
Yes.
So, but no, I have not done any research as in the manner of an academic research, but I've been here I've been here for consultations and seminars, but I've also been here in academic settings. As I said, I've taught for 4 successive summers at Kyunghee University. So every once in a while, I teach to keep my sanity.
So your research is something like a study. Academically, for a long time you researched something, but what you did was just fact finding.
But not on Korean issues, no.
Okay, so it's different.
Right. I read primary materials. I read primary materials written by Koreans.
Okay.
Yeah, books by Yongbok, books by Dr. No Jung-sun, things like that.
You are a teacher yourself as well.
Every once in a while, as I said, to keep my sanity.
Yes. So it's very clear and easy what you say. So I appreciate the interview is quite easy to understand for me. So if you're thirsty, you can drink some water.
Yeah, that would be a good.
Water here.
Yeah.
Or it's been an hour, so maybe we can take a break.
Another hour. What will I say more?
Let's think about that. Take a break. 5 minutes?
That's okay. No. I think it's okay.
You okay?
Yeah, let's finish it.
Anytime you want to take a break.
No.
Just
I
say.
think we're okay. It will be better.
Okay. So go back to that fact-finding mission and student movement. And you said your entire activities are strictly related to the churches.
Yes.
So how did the Korean churches respond to the student movement? Do you know anything about that?
It's a matter of impression that I would say. The Korean Student Christian Federation during the 80s was one of the strongest student Christian movements in the world, including the Philippines. Korea, Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand and India actually are the biggest SCMs anywhere in the world. And student Christian movement is a worldwide movement. The headquarters is based in Geneva, Switzerland. The Asia Pacific office is based in Hong Kong. And so my impression of the Korean Student Christian Federation in the 80s and the 90s is that it was a strong movement. And what that meant is that these students came from the member churches of the NCC Korea. So, support of the church of the student Christian movement, part impression, part knowledge would be that because they were representing a different understanding of Christian witness, they didn't necessarily feel comfortable with the institutional church. Because the institutional church tends to preserve the status quo, and therefore criticizing the government, criticizing well-established institutions is not conducive in an institutional church. Because if an institutional church allows critique of other institutions, they suspect that before long, the church as an institution will also be critiqued. See, religious institutions in that are the same as state institutions. They want to preserve order, church and state. And so if the church allows criticism of the state, they think that very soon the church will also be critiqued. So the student Christian movement has always come from church, but they represented a different kind of ministry, prophetic ministry, if you want to call it that way, because they did not necessarily represent what the institution would like. They would like to reform the institutions, especially political institutions. Yeah.
So, actual church and those student based on institutional church is a slightly different.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at the leaders here attending this seminar now, they were very legitimate church leaders. But when they were students, they were seen by the church institution as radical activists. But over time, they become pillars of the church.
So it's same but different.
Yeah. I mean, very respected. Dr. O.J. Schick eventually becomes ambassador of Korea.
Ooh. Respectable. Yeah. So, while you were doing research, fact-finding, let's say, about the movement, did you happen to meet any government-related people or officers?
I do not. For the fact-finding mission itself, when I met Kim Dae-jung, I'm sure I met a government official. I met Korean soldiers who were guarding the house of Kim Dae-jung. Before you can enter his house, they get fingerprint, they look at your passport, they record everything, they take a photo of you. So the Korean government knew I was here because no one can enter the house of Kim Dae-jung during his house arrest without going through the government.
So, actually, not those people who work for the government, and then somebody who can tell you the stories. Like none of them. You met none of them, right?
I don't know if we met any government official. I'm sure we wanted to,
but
because a good fact-finding mission must include a meeting with government officials.
Okay.
We must have, but I don't know why I don't particularly remember.
Okay.
The one that is stuck to mind is the Korean military who made sure that we are clear to enter the house of Kim Dae-jung.
I see. Why was it so impressive? Were they so young or something?
No, because it's like they want to know everything about you before they allow you in. Yeah.
I see. Skip that question. After your visit, you must have reported what you saw in your documents to the CCA.
Yes, we proceed. If I recall correctly, we proceeded to Hong Kong, and the members of the fact-finding mission drafted the report, and we made a public. As I said, the whole report was published in a book. So the Korean government knew we were coming. Mm-hmm. The Korean military or police or Korean CIA, I think, was the one that was guarding Kim.
Yes.
They knew we were here. So they know that we will be writing a report. And we wrote the report, and it was published. It was public.
It was published, and is it preserved now?
I think so. It has to be.
It has to be.
CCA must have a record of it.
Okay. So, since I haven't read so what was that?
Maybe, what do you call this? Church libraries here, like Yonsei should have, the Methodist Theological School here, seminary very close by here should have a copy or something like that.
What was that report mainly about?
On the human rights condition in
Human
Korea.
rights. So it could be stories from people you met.
Right, right. Different sectors of society.
Okay. Is the did CCA take any action? Or they just preserve those records? Or
It did take an action, and I think that was exactly what Dr. Park Sang-jung mentioned, that because of reports like the fact-finding, the report of the fact-finding mission, the Korean people had gained friends from around the world that gave support by way of telling the world what's happening in Korea and why the churches around the world and religious bodies around the world should be praying for the country and for the people of Korea.
I see. Because of that book and because of those missions, the rest of the world
Knew
got
about
to
Korea.
know
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going on here.
Yeah. Well, you see, the 1980s, Korea is not what you know today as a tourist destination.
Yeah.
They knew that there was a dictatorship in Korea. They knew there were demonstrations. So not only was there a division of the two Koreas of the peninsula, so there is always the threat of the north, but there's also a threat inside. So people would say, don't go to Korea. There are aside from the threat from the north, there are also demonstrations in Seoul, in Gwangju, in
Dangerous.
Daegu, Busan. So people did not necessarily come to Korea the way they come now.
Do you think after that kind of a mission, the people get to know, and that's why those foreign reporters and then TV broadcasting came here and to broadcast what's going on, or it was before?
It's mixed. That's why fact-finding missions are not taken lightly. They have to be carefully planned because the people we met could be endangered when we leave them.
Because they said stuff.
Because they said something about their own people and about their own country. But on the other hand, it could also serve as protection. Because if we met someone, it's telling the government that if you touch this person, the whole world knows.
I see.
So the seminar today is about solidarity. So fact-finding missions like that created solidarity networks. So in fact, what the fact-finding mission would say is, this may be what is happening in Korea, but we would like to encourage the Christians around the world to go visit Korea and express your solidarity. Go there and worship with the people in the churches, even if they are under threat. In a way, fact-finding mission is a tourist announcement.
So the people you interviewed,
Yeah.
women, factory workers,
Yeah.
and students, they were all Christians?
I don't think so. No.
How
I'm
you
sure
get
there
to
were
meet
Buddhists,
them?
yeah.
Like, how you select? How did you?
Oh, it's a local priority. No. Fact-finding missions, we allow generally it has to be the local people who select the people we meet.
So Korean people who were
Definitely, yeah.
they chose
Yeah,
to interview.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it was kind of witness protection program. They can be in really great danger, and also they can be protected.
You can say that. You can
Yeah.
say that. Yeah.
It's very tense.
Who would know that Kim Dae-jung would eventually become the president
Yes.
of
who
the
knew?
country, and who would know that he would be a Nobel Peace Prize winner?
Oh yeah, that was a very touching moment
Yeah,
for
of course.
us Korean.
Yeah,
Yeah, not all of us, but
yeah. Yeah.
most of us.
I wish I met him again before he died, but
Have you happened to meet Ro as well?
Mr.
The president?
Daewoo? No.
Ro Moo-hyun.
No, Mo-hyun?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, when we get that news he passed away, it was
Yeah.
also very
Touching.
touching and
Yeah.
it was big tragic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I guess we should take a break. Can I go to the bathroom?
Okay.
Just 5 minutes?
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. Stop.